Good evening, everyone. This is Tom Ossa. I'm here with Rockland Sounds. It's a new podcast that we're starting literally tonight. So mark your calendars. September 10th, 2020 is the official first episode of this podcast. Like the other podcasts that we put together, we're starting off with a nice casual format. We don't want to make it too stringent. We want to make it enjoyable, not just for you guys, but also for our guests. So we hope to have a really good show, and we'll see where it goes over the next coming weeks, months, and maybe years. We'll see how you guys like it. Just very briefly, Rockland Sound is sponsored by our parent company, Rockland Web. Handles web development, web marketing, and automation for all of your business needs. Today, and my co-host will be here momentarily, but our guest today is Mitch Lafon. I'm just going to bring him up outside of the PowerPoint. So Mitch has a lot of chops in rock journalism, reporting for the last 10 plus years. There's some resources in the PowerPoint that I'll be showing you momentarily, but you'll be able to see that for the last 10 years, he's interviewed a variety of different artists across the spectrum of rock, even members of Guns N' Roses, members of Kiss, members of very prominent and well-known bands that have really helped feed our souls over the last 40 years. You know, I just passed the 40-year mark a few years ago, and I'll tell you, I can't live without my rock. I mean, music is life for me. So, you know, behind the scenes, in addition to all of the music that's played, there's obviously a lot of stories that you hear. Mitch is on the cutting edge of that. He's able to get in with a lot of the individual personalities and really just kind of like get a better feel for each of the individuals and what their likes and dislikes are. And Mitch, a perfect example is, you know, I was doing a little studying up on you. I was looking at a few YouTubes. I happened to notice, I mean, you know, you have the Slash photo up at the top on YouTube. So I listened in on that podcast, and you were asking Slash about things that, you know, he really likes, which is the movie that he wanted to produce back in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like you got a really good feel for, you know, kind of getting in and understanding where the rock artist is going, you know, music or not music. So welcome to the show tonight.
Yeah, pleasure to be here. It's from wonderful Canada. I come to you tonight, and yeah, you know, the co-host on my show is Alan Niven, who, of course, used to manage Guns N' Roses. So that's where the Slash connection comes in. Alan's always been very kind in setting up, not necessarily interviews, because that's not his purview anymore, but he's set up connections that can make it happen, and getting to meet him backstage and all that stuff. So always fun hanging out with Slash. He's truly a great guy, and obviously one of the greatest guitarists still out there.
Yeah, he seems very business oriented too. I mean, obviously, back in the late 80s, early 90s, everybody had all the crazy stuff going on and whatnot. But I think during the hiatus and everybody kind of came back to sound, mind, and body to a degree. And, you know, they started getting things organized. And every time I see him in interviews, he seems very level-headed and not really too far out there in left field, you know?
Yeah, you know, I have found over the years that some of the most successful artists are the ones that have a head on their shoulders, in a sense. You know, you look at the ones that are playing stadiums, that are playing arenas, whether it's Kiss, whether it's Def Leppard, whether it's Bon Jovi. They all have that fabulous business acumen. They know what they're doing. They know where they're going. And you look at some of the ones that are playing the clubs, and okay, sometimes it's the music doesn't connect with a larger fan base, but sometimes they're just there because they just weren't that smart. I mean, I don't mean to be offensive, but you know, they just didn't have that business sense of what was right and what was wrong. And yes, they'll probably sit here and say, well, we've made more money than you will ever make. Yeah, maybe, but if you were really that smart at what you were doing, you would still be in the stadiums, you would still be in the arenas, and they'll say, yeah, well, Nirvana, this and that, and then grunge. It's like, yeah, well, you know, grunge affected Guns N' Roses, grunge affected Nirvana, or not Nirvana, Bon Jovi, Def Leppard, and they still managed. So it really comes down to being level-headed and having a great head on your shoulders. That's how you stay ahead. I mean, Duff and Axel and Slash, smart folks, really smart folks.
Yeah, and it's funny, and not to go too much into Guns N' Roses, but as long as we're on the topic, I noticed, there's obviously some bad blood for a while, and thank goodness they were able to get past it. But I noticed that, really the Axel, he kind of took this hermit approach where he's behind the scenes and he wanted to create this perfect Chinese democracy album and so on and so forth. But he really just kind of, I guess he was waiting for the right time to really come back into the spotlight with the brand. But then when he realized that he couldn't do it alone, then he started reaching out with Slash and Duff and the guys. It's the way it seems. I don't know.
Yeah, well, with any band, including Bon Jovi with Richie Sambora, at some point, or Gene and Paul with, or Ace and Peter with Kiss, at some point there's the law of diminishing returns, and you need that sort of boost to get things going. And with Guns N' Roses, honestly, I'm not sure you need anybody else but Slash. I think they probably would have had the same successful stadium tour had it been just Slash and Axel. So sometimes you need just a couple of key components to make it that magical thing. And you look in Kiss's case, they brought back Ace and Peter back in '96, and then of course Kiss becomes relevant again, and then they slowly got rid of those guys, and they sort of kept the momentum going. Oh, there's Michael. Hello, Michael.
Hey, Mike, how's it going, man? Are you there, bro? Oh, he's just checking.
Connecting to audio. So yeah,
Go ahead, Mitch. I
feel like Doug Henning. It's magic.
It is magic. There's Michael. He is joining his own show's interview late. Good job.
Well, my computer decided it wanted to do 2 updates at one time, so I got thrown under the bus there. But,
nice. That happens to me. I had a Apple update run just before like a Rob Halford interview or something, and I was like, "Oh, you got to be kidding me!" Anyway, so
you pop up in the dark here, and it's like, well,
there you go.
Here we go. I came to life.
There you go.
All right.
Yeah. So
I appreciate for you for
coming on. There you go. Well, I was just gonna. That was it. I just that you have to have a head on your shoulders to get ahead, and so bringing Slash back, or eventually bringing Richie Sambora back, or bringing it just makes sense, Mm-hmm. Even Judas Priest, I think when we come out of the COVID times, are going to have to heavily consider bringing KK Downing back, because there's going to be so many bands on the road and so much competition. Everybody's going to want to tour at the same time because nobody's toured for the last year or whatever, 6 months.
Man,
that you're going to have to do something to be different from the pack. And in Judas Priest's case, going out with a couple of new guys. Okay, everybody loves Richie Faulkner, and the other guy's great too. But I think they're going to have to bring KK back. So I think you're going to see a lot of that going into 2021, 2022, where bands are going to say, "Wow, what do we need to do to sort of get above what we were before, and again above the competition, and how are we going to sell the arena and take their tickets?" And I think reunions are going to be part of it. I think Bon Jovi might have to consider it as well.
Well, I recently heard Phil X mention that.
Yeah, well, he mentioned it on my show.
On your show, yeah.
Yeah, he said money talks, and it does. Now, in Phil X's case, or in Bon Jovi's case, they've had an extra guitarist on stage for years, whether it's John Shanks or Bobby Bandieras or Phil X or whoever else. I would have no objections to having Phil X stay and bring Richie back, and then either go with 3 guitars, which is probably overkill, and just say, "Hey, John Shanks, we love you. You're a great producer, but Richie Sambora is a bigger draw than you. Let's not kid ourselves. And Phil X is probably a bigger draw than you as well, not to kid ourselves." And that doesn't mean that we don't like John or he's not any good or et cetera. But
We
I
could give John Shanks this. He was able to keep Van Halen and get him to make a record.
yeah, I mean, Shanks
With Dave.
does with Dave. Yes, Shanks does okay, but yeah, I can certainly see Phil X and Richie Sambora coming back to Bon Jovi by 2022.
I think that John, though, might lose his mind because they seem to have similar personalities, Richie and Phil X. That might be overkill.
Or it might be super cool.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you got two guys that can handle their instrument properly. It could make for a magical combination. So I'm hoping it happens.
See, I like Phil X, and I like the music he's done, and I've been following him on and off for years because he stole my other one favorite guitar player role, you know, in Rick Emmett. Didn't steal it, but Rick Emmett left. But still, that was one of those ones that was like, oh, here now he's got Richie.
Yeah. So he stepped in for Rick Emmett in Triumph a long time ago, like 20 years ago, probably. And he handled that very well. I mean, Phil's a talented dude. So, you know, if Richie Sambora comes back, which he probably will, it makes sense.
Seems like he's laying real low.
Well, yeah, he had that album that was supposed to come out this year that he had been working on. He had been teasing it on Instagram and on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
I think he teased the clip of him playing drums with Tommy Lee in the studio, and then Bob Rock producing it, which should be great. And I just don't think that there's any point for him to put it out right now if he's not going to go tour it and not go talk about it. So I think he's laying low on that. But his former girlfriend Orianthi has a new album out that's certainly worth checking out.
I liked that album they did together. I actually thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, the RSO album was decent. You know, in my my never-ending Bon Jovi playlist that I keep in my phone at all times, I threw in most of those songs because they work. They work as rock songs.
Man, and she's just great all around. She can play too and sing her butt off. So that's awesome.
Yeah,
just because I missed in the beginning, what was the first? Where did we start? The question was.
We started with Guns N' Roses.
Okay.
This might be a good time to just make some quick introductions how Mike and I know each other. So for those who are listening for the first time, including us podcasting for the first time music-wise, Mike and I know each other for a little over 10 years. If I could share my screen real quick, this is a picture of Mike and I in a little metal band called Scarshine, and it's not like we play Garden or anything like that. But Mike was the lead singer for our bands, and then we have Woody and Chris to the left of us, and that's me up in the top right-hand corner wearing a silly dance shirt and stuff like that. So I was on drums and whatnot. But yeah, so Mike and I have known each other, since 2009, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and we rocked for years. One of the more interesting things that happened while we were playing together is there was this one time where we were playing a gig right next to Giant Stadium. It's like a little, dive bar.
Oh, great, thanks. I see where this is going.
That was awesome, man. No, that was awesome. That was like one of my favorite shows. And I was like so jacked up from the energy of the room and everything like that. At the end of a song, I started screaming at the top of my lungs, and I literally felt something pop in the middle of my chest. And it was like all of a sudden, like I kind of like almost passed out, but I was like, no, got to finish the set. And it was just basically willpower. I don't know what happened, and it didn't ever happen again, but it was a really strange thing. But I'm okay. I'm here. I'm glad to be alive. And and Mike and I have been keeping in touch ever since. And Mike is also responsible for connecting us with Mitch here. Now, how do you guys know each other? Did you guys reach out just recently, or?
Well, I've been following Mitch through, as a music fan and stuff for a long time. Mm-hmm. And then once Facebook came around, and I started getting more into Facebook, I mean, it's just popping up. And Mitch has instead of not just being somebody that posts podcasts or does podcasts, he's doing daily trivia, and these albums are released every day. So he's constantly in the news feed, and being somebody that is, just always a hungry music fan as far as just loving facts and any info. I just started commenting and,
Yeah.
being friendly.
Very cool. Very cool. And your podcast, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, Mitch, they go back to is around 2011, I believe, or?
Yeah, about 2011 or so. And over the years, I've been at Westwood One, I've been at Podcast One. So some of the content over the years has sort of disappeared or fallen in a black hole. But a lot of it's there now. Those are the YouTube ones where I dump the audio. But you can also find me on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all that. But yeah, it's fun, and at some point, you got to think to yourself, well, how long do you keep going with this? Do you just go until it doesn't go, or do you just sort of wrap it up after a while and say, hey, I've done it. I've interviewed these guys. I've interviewed Iron Maiden. I've interviewed Kiss and Guns N' Roses, and
But see, you have your answers right on your face. You're smiling.
Well, yeah, but like tomorrow on September 11th, I had Ace Frehley booked, but I had to cancel it because it's my dad's 90th birthday.
Oh, nice.
And I love Ace and stuff, so I handed it off to a buddy of mine for him to do it. But you get to that point sometimes where there's life priorities, and you go, "Hey, listen, Ace is great, but dad first,
Family first, man.
Family first, and on top of that, it's September 11th, right? Yeah. So it's like, well, September 11th, and it's your dad's birthday. Yeah, you know what? It's maybe not time to be talking rock and roll.
Yeah, yeah. That sounds like the wise move, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too. And plus, I handed it off to Jeremy White, who's a 26-year-old DJ out of Montreal. He's starting up his own show and his own podcast and his own thing. So it's a great kick for him. So listen, it works out for everybody. I get to go do the dad thing. He gets to interview Ace, which he's always wanted to do. Everybody wins.
One of those for me, because I'm a Kiss fiend. So
yeah.
Yeah, now, well, I'm going to ask you, just since you follow the Facebook and I come up in the feed daily, so you like the trivia, you like the On This Day albums. Is there anything I need to stop doing? Is there anything that's just really irritating and you go, oh, not again?
No. The only thing I would say that's funny is that if I follow you on my Instagram, so I get a double dose.
Yeah, that was the funny thing. I had started off with Twitter and Facebook. And then when I joined Westwood One, they said, well, you have to have a Rock Talk page. And I went, okay. So the Rock Talk page and the Facebook page are basically the same page.
Right.
And then there was a time a couple of years ago where Twitter was having some difficulties of revenue streams. And some of the media experts said, you need to get off of Twitter because it's probably going to disappear in a couple of years. And you need to get yourself over to Instagram. And I was like, I'm not an Instagram guy. I mean, I'm not posting pictures of me dancing on the street. And, so I moved over to Instagram. And it's, it's pretty much all the same feed with the exception that Instagram is just really the pictures and Facebook, there's more back and forth talking, and I'll throw up a YouTube video and you'll get this different stuff, right? So, you get a whole bunch of you get different versions. If you want Mitch Light, go to the Rock Talk page. If you want, Photo Light, go to the Instagram page. If you want the whole shebang, the deluxe edition, go to Twitter and go to my private Facebook page.
I think what you're doing right on it that I like is that you're not just covering like, some hard rock album or something. You're putting in this date, in these years would be, and it could be anybody from Slayer to the Police or Fleetwood Mac or somebody. So I think that's what keeps it interesting.
And I think that's interesting for me. Like the other day I posted something about Billy Ocean. I don't post about Billy Ocean daily, but
Mm.
I had that fact in my little book there, and I said, you know what? That darn video showed up on Much Music or MTV every 5 minutes back then. Everybody remembers that song. You might not have been a fan of Billy's, but you know that song. And I said, I'm just going to post it. What the heck? Let people talk. And you know what? It ended up being an exceptionally popular post. People were like, wow, I remember that song. And people are all writing in like, I hate to admit it, but I'm actually a fan. And I was like, well, why would you hate to admit that, But yeah, I think that's what keeps it interesting for me is I don't want to just lock myself into Slayer, or Metallica, because after a while, first of all, it's finite. You don't have facts that can go on forever with these bands. At some point you run out or you just start tripping over yourself or your fan base is very limited. And you know what? The great thing about being a fan, especially of our age, who grew up on MTV and who grew up on Much Music, is we were too lazy to get off the couch to go change the channel because you actually had to get off the couch to change the channel.
No remote.
Yeah, or you had a remote with a cable or it never worked or,
we were the remotes.
We were the remotes for mom and dad. Hey, dude, go put on the Giants. Come on, So we sat there and we watched this stuff, and you would see whatever Rock You Like a Hurricane, and then you would see a Madonna video, and you just sat there and you went, all right. But you know what? At the end of the day, we learned about a lot of different styles and a lot of different bands, and so here we are in our 40s and our 50s, and yes, we're a Kiss fan, and yes, we're a whatever Scorpions fan, but then you hear that Madonna song, Papa Don't Preach, and you go, oh yeah, I remember that. All right, I'll just let it play. And a lot of kids don't do that these days. And not that I bemoan them because we all have our own different experiences with music. But, they're very used to, like my kids do, I want to hear Post Malone. I'm going to go hear Post Malone. Mm-hmm. We're not going to waste our time listening to whatever else is on the radio. And, that's fine. We all have our different experiences. We didn't like the way our moms and dads listened to Elvis or Frank Sinatra. We were, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. So we all have our own experiences, but it's interesting to me that I can post all this stuff. I can post a Madonna factoid and then I can post a Slayer factoid right after and get the same response. Hundreds of people will like it or whatever. And it's just like, yeah, that goes to show. It's kind of fun,
So Mitch, what I was asking before is as far as the generations that are listening to different genres of music these days, do you find that, I was very interested in the backstories of my favorite music artists. I read so many Doors books, the John Densmore book. Currently, I'm actually reading the Slash book. I got it as a birthday present last year. So, interested in the backstories. Do you find that the current generation of music fans, are they as interested in the stories of their favorite artists these days?
Well, listen, my perception goes with, my kids and my kids' friends. And when I bring up a factoid and say, hey, did you know Post Malone used to do this? They don't really seem to care as much. They seem to more care about what they're wearing, what they're endorsing, who they're dating, what they're drinking. But of course I can't speak for the entire generation. I'm sure there's some out there that probably want to hear the backstory. When I think back to kids when we were in high school, they wore the culture clubs, the makeup and stuff, and they did the Madonna hair and the net shirt, and I don't think all of those people really cared about what the backstory on Madonna was or what the backstory on the Hooters were, So I think there's probably a bit of both, where some are going to be interested and some are going to want to know about, hey, did he come up in an abusive family with a this and a that, or did he come from a rich family? And some are just going to go, dude, just play me the fucking song, and that's all I want to hear, So I can see that, but yeah, I think for us older fans, as we've gotten older and we saw the Cream magazines and the hit paraders, that sort of sold us this garbagey version of what the truth was. And we start reading these books and stuff. We go, oh, really? That's what happened? You mean what was on page 12 of Hit Parader was garbage? Oh, Okay. And then so we get that. And who knows? I'm assuming when my daughter hits 47, she might want to read the Post Malone autobiography. I'm assuming, how it was to record with Ozzy in 2020. I mean, probably, you know.
Nice. I had a few other questions I wanted to ask before we close out, and hopefully Mike can join us toward the end. But you grew up in Canada, if I'm not mistaken. Mike
Correct.
corrected me. So are you? I don't know. Are you currently in the States? Like you migrated to the United States?
No, I'm in Montreal. I'm still up here.
Very,
You know, I'm still a proud Montreal Canadiens fan.
mm-hmm.
Always enjoyable when the Rangers get knocked out of the playoffs before us. That is always a great thing. And but I do have my affinities for the States. For years, I wanted to move to San Diego. For years, I've been a fan of the Washington football team. So yeah, I've got my heart in the States, but I've got my butt in Canada. So.
So, but you have a decent following in the United States. I mean, just based on your YouTube numbers. So I would imagine that you got a large contingency of subscribers specifically from the United States. And
I do.
World.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. There's a lot of rock fans in the States that currently aren't being served really by any media. I mean, you do have Eddie Trunk that serves part of it, but the rest of the media doesn't really service the American rock fan. You've sort of been abandoned. If you go to Entertainment Tonight, or if you go to Variety, or if you go to any of those sort of standard publications, or Rolling Stone, or Entertainment Weekly, they're talking about Selena Gomez. They're talking about Miley Cyrus. They're talking about all these bands that really don't connect with the rock fans. So yes, you have Eddie on Sirius doing his thing. Eddie doesn't work the socials as much as I do.
Mm-hmm.
So, and by the way, in no way, shape, or form am I comparing myself. He's a lot more successful. He's got a lot more followers. Let's not kid ourselves. But that said, I am active on social with the factoids and on this day and the conversations. And if you write me, I write you back, and so on and so forth. So it's a niche little corner of the rock world, but it's my corner. For the most part, and it's a fun place to be. And so I think that responds to a lot of folks that are going, hey, I want to talk about the Scorpions, but I got nowhere to go. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I can tune in to Sirius from whatever 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. and hear a show about it. But what if I want to tune in at 10 o'clock at night, or what if I want to wake up and see a cute factoid at 8 o'clock in the morning? Well, that's where I step in. Mm-hmm. And I think for the most part it's been successful. I'm at 20,000 Twitter followers with, almost 8 million Twitter impressions a month, which are great numbers.
That's great. Absolutely.
But I would love to have greater numbers. I'd like to have 100,000 followers with 15 million Twitter impressions a month. So there's always, room to grow. There's always stuff to do and move on. And hey, who knows? If I can get 100,000 followers, maybe I can make some money at this.
Yep. Yeah, I dig. Yeah, one of my friends from one of the networking groups that I do, he's also a web developer, and he's got a podcast for comic books and film and such. It's called Sire Studios. So makes a decent living and from the web development, but he'd like to turn the podcasting and the video part into kind of like the full-time thing. And he's doing good, but like everything else, I mean, you got the mega stars and such, and and then we're always chasing the dragon a little bit, right?
Oh yeah, and it does get frustrating after a while. Even for me, sometimes you just like, Metallica is doing interviews these days for the S&M 2 album.
Yeah.
And I've seen Lars and the other guys on CNN and on BBC and on all these, E-Talk Canada or E-Canada and all these, major things. And I requested an interview and they said, well, you can have one with the conductor. And I'm like, okay. Now, listen, that can be fun too, because you can have sort of a different angle and a different take on things. But it's just like, wow, okay, I can have the guy who conducted the band. Okay, I get it. I'm not top tier. All right, I got you. You know,
Yeah.
that's all right. You get used to it.
I mean, hey, if you're interviewing guys like Slash and members of Kiss and every other, I mean, it sounds like top tier to me, sir. Sounds like top tier to me.
I know. I'm a perfectionist. I'm a wanting more guy. I always want more.
Yeah.
I interview Gene Simmons. I want to interview Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley at the same time. That's the sort of, I guess that's the drive that sort of kept me going and kept me pushing and kept me wanting.
So that drive, is that what got you into the industry in the first place? Did you kind of fall into it, or you'd planned it out?
No, I fell into it very accidentally, and it's just a great passion that kept me going and eventually got me to my own podcast, because I worked for different magazines and I worked for different outlets, and there was always rules, and there was always, you can only do this guest and you can only talk to this guest, and this guest is on that record label, but that record label hasn't bought ads with us, so you can't talk to the person on that record label. And it was annoying.
Mm.
So eventually I just got myself to being solo, and solo is great. You can do whatever you want when you're solo. So uh by the way, I'm seeing all those pictures of myself. That is fantastic.
Yeah, man.
And I don't Google myself very often, so who knows what comes up, but that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to come up and do my own thing, do my own show, not have to play by anybody's rules, and just be able to be me.
Sometimes it just, I mean, we put our objectives out on life, and sometimes life puts its stuff on us, and it works out pretty nice. So it sounds like you found the right niche to hop into, right?
Yeah, I really did, and it's paid off. Now, of course, this year there's been no shows and there's been none of that. So some of the peripheral benefits, or the asides, where, hey, I get to interview these guys and then I get to go see a show, that's not there this year. So it's been interesting to stay focused sometimes and stay motivated sometimes, because you sort of want that whole existence and that whole lifestyle. And it's not there right now, but hopefully in 2021 it'll come back. I'm not overly sure. Um, I'm not overly sure we're going to have large shows next year.
Yeah. It'll be different. I'm sure the powers that be are going to want to keep us more socially distant for a while. Um, it's
Yeah.
my opinion. I think that is going to create a wave of more virtual reality
Hmm.
entertainment. Maybe some more holographic technology. We'll see how it goes, but there's definitely some large scale corporations that are working on it, I would imagine.
Well, with everything that's bad that goes around, whether it's Spanish flu or World War II or whatever that's gone bad in history, it's always led to great innovation. You look at the 50s, the 1950s, coming out of World War II. Well, it was the roaring 50s. There was all kinds of stuff, and the space program and this program, and the military invented that, and eventually, so people are going to look back and they're going to go, okay, what don't I have? What do I need? How am I going to get it? And we're going to see new ways. We're going to see, vaccine development increase and go faster. We're gonna understand. There's going to be more investment into medical field and computer fields. We're doing a Zoom right now, and it looks okay, but it's 2020. It should look better.
Yeah.
I mean, it should.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Zoom got caught off guard. They were like, listen, for a couple of guys in a boardroom talking about what car we're going to rent on the weekend to go to Dallas for, they don't need a super duper whatever. So we're going to see this stuff get better. We're going to see the microphones. A lot of us are using the laptop microphones. We're not using, real equipment. All of a sudden, we're going to have real equipment. We're going to have. So this pandemic sucks,
Mhm.
but I'm really looking forward to like 2024, 2025, 2026, when we start seeing all these innovations and, research and R&D stuff, start rolling all this stuff out and go, you thought that sucked back then? Check it out now, boys.
Mhm.
And I think it'll be great. And who knows, maybe the Washington football team will actually win something between now and then.
It could be. You talking about the Redskins?
Yeah, the Redskins. Yeah. Well, they're called the Washington team now. So
One of my favorite, I'm kind of like a God-fearing type of dude, a little Bible thump, but not too much. But one of my favorite people on the face of this planet, he's a pastor that, I see from time to time, and he is a huge Washington Redskins fan. So every time he shows up, we kind of like, we rib him a little bit. But the truth is, I wish Robert Griffin III did better. I mean, I think he was a stand-up type of QB, and the Redskins, they deserve better. They deserve better.
they do, and the Redskins, they messed up RG3. They had put him in that playoff game or whatever, and they let him get pounded into the ground.
Yeah.
And he was never able to play it properly, at least not for Washington after that. They should have pulled him out and said, you know what? We'd rather lose this game than lose the entire next year.
Absolutely.
And it was just a really stupid decision because he was ineffective. He was hobbled. He was slow. I mean, how bad could the backup have been that you'd rather have a cripple? I mean, really, you'd rather have somebody who was crippled playing than. So I don't think RG3 should be very happy with Washington because they sort of cost him his career. I mean, they really did. I mean, he's still playing and stuff, but he's not the superstar that he should have been.
I hear you. So
I think I'm back, just so you know.
There you go. Hey, Mike.
The last 4 days we've had these great storms here in Texas, and one just started. So
it's knocking you
everything
all
was
over.
going well, and then all of a sudden I was like gone.
Well, it's all right. But we have the magic of editing. Any questions from you, Mike? Well, since we have you before you freeze up again.
Yeah, before I go off, I was watching. Did you watch the just real quick the little anniversary of the Slip of the Tongue Whitesnake reunion?
Oh,
they had all the members of
the live stream. Yeah, I checked it out for about 5-6 minutes. I have to be frank on this. I'm not a big live streamer kind of person. I've checked a lot of them out, and I'll tell you what bums me out about a lot of them is that they're just a complete disorganized mess.
Well, that's I feel like the Adrian Vandenberg in that, because I saw it on YouTube real quick, and he couldn't get on to save his life. So
yeah, and I get the whole live stream thing. It's kind of cool to be there and talk to the guy. Well, but I do think a lot of this streaming needs to be produced. It needs to be slickened up. It needs to be edited, and it needs to be broadcast at a different date. And just say, hey, we've recorded this great whatever. We've recorded this great show on the Monsters of Rock stage, and here it is later on. Now, to be fair, Monster of Rock does great live streams. Everything has been A1. But what was I watching the other day? I was watching Last in Line. Last in Line were doing a live stream, and Vinny Appice couldn't get on. And then the guys were making fun of him and Apple, and he should buy a new computer. And it was just like, could you just get the fuck on with it? Like I don't want to hear this nonsense. And some might find it endearing, which is fine. I don't find it endearing, so I click off. So I stayed on the Last in Line thing for 3-4 minutes, and then I just went, you know what? It's boring.
That's what happened with the Whitesnake Day. I saw it on YouTube, so I didn't watch it live.
Right. But they didn't edit it. They just took the stream and they threw it up. So I think there's potential, like I was talking with Tom, and virtual reality and holograms, but it's got to be slick. They got to slicken it up. The whole I'm sitting in my living room is like, all right, but I'm paying for a ticket for, a lot of them are starting to charge like $10 or whatever. It's like, yeah, I'm paying for a ticket. You need to up your game, my friend.
Right. I do have a couple questions if you have a couple minutes.
Yeah.
Frankie Benali, I'd like you to touch on him since you knew him well.
Yep.
and we lost him, and he obviously put up a valiant fight with pancreatic cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have anything you'd like to relay to us to share, some of those moments.
Yeah, Frankie it's a devastating loss. I certainly wasn't as close as his bandmates or as his wife, but we did have a special relationship where when it was time to announce the cancer to the world, he said, Mitch, I'd like you to do it. And we had picked a time, and I had known for months. We were over at the M3 festival in Maryland in May of was it 2019? I guess it was 2019.
A couple of years ago, right, where he missed the show.
Yeah, but he was at the M3 one. For the M3 one, he showed up, and he took me backstage, and we took a couple of pictures, and he told me about it, and it was like, oh, fuck. And then they were going to play Montreal at this Heavy Montreal festival in July, and I knew he wasn't going to be there. So on my coverage, I deliberately, as I live stream on Twitter and stuff, I deliberately didn't show the drummer, I showed the crowd, and I showed James and Chuck, and I deliberately kept not showing Frankie just to not ruin what was going on. And then he sent me this note, and he said, okay, on this date at this time, I want you to put it on your Facebook. And so I did. And I planned my whole side. I mean, I made sure I got enough sleep so that I didn't oversleep and I didn't miss and I put it up on my Facebook, and literally about a minute later, it started showing up on all the different rock websites. One grabbed it, because I don't want to say I teased it, but I said, hey, tomorrow at 8:00, I have a special announcement. And I guess people tuned in to say, okay, what's this going to be? And then they saw the Frankie has a cancer thing. And I'm telling you, by the time I got up to go to the bathroom, it was all over. Rolling Stone had it, Billboard had it, and so that was nice to see that folks loved Frankie enough, or loved Frankie that all of a sudden, whether it fit their format or didn't fit their format, or they were like, yeah, we're going to run a story about this guy because he's a good dude. And
kind of like an outpouring of love.
Oh, it really was. It was like wildfire. I mean, it was like,
Mm-hmm.
And when it was time to announce his passing, his wife reached out to me and said, Frankie passed away, and we're going to announce it on this day and this time. And she had prepared a statement, so I put it up, and I let it go. And Eddie Trunk had mentioned it on his show as well. So Eddie Trunk was supposed to mention it at 2, and I was supposed to put it up on the socials at 2:05. That was the plan. And there was a great outpouring, and it was and still is very, very touching. You look sometimes at the, on paper, and you go, well, on paper, it's an 80s rock star who's been playing smaller venues for many years, and all of that falls out by the wayside, and all of a sudden you're seeing Fox News and CNN and all these places that haven't covered him or the band in years say, hey, you know what? Forget that. This is a man that needs to be respected. So let's take a moment to do that. And it was wonderful to see. I mean, it was just absolutely wonderful to see. And the Pancreatic Cancer Society made a post. What are they called? Are they called PAN? PAN or sorry, my mind is blank, but they made a wonderful post about how Frankie had helped them and helped raise funds for them. And it was nice to see. Now, of course, it goes without saying that we'd rather have Frankie here, completely cancer-free and healthy and kicking butt. But there he is. That's the one. Go put it back up for a second.
Yeah. Here we go.
Yes, that's it. The PCAN, the Pancreatic Cancer Association. Yeah, Action Network, PCAN.
Got it. I'll put it in the document as a follow-up for people.
Yeah, now that's the one when it was announced. They also did one when he passed away, which was that's the announcement from 2019. But they did one when he passed away, which was really fantastic. And I'm sure you'll find it. But it was great. It was great to see, and you know, God bless him. We'd love to have him back.
Absolutely.
And healthy, back and healthy, not back with cancer, back and healthy.
And Mitch, we want to be respectful of your time. We only got like a few minutes. You mentioned you have many commitments to address, but Mike had one more quick question, and then
no worries, go for it.
Close out.
Mike.
Perfect timing.
His feed cut out again.
Listen. It's like you had to have a storm down there today.
We can always do a part 2, but or maybe Mike could type it in real quick and I can just answer it.
All right. Well, I'll throw in my we might do some follow up, and we appreciate it. I got 2 quickie questions.
Go for it.
One of your favorite interviews of all time thus far?
It's got to be the Gene Simmons when I was 11 years old. I mean, that tells a story. You know, who else can sit here and say they interviewed one of the greatest rock stars when they were 11 years old? Not a lot of people.
For real.
I'm sure there's a couple, but not a lot of people. And so and that was my first interview. So hey, you can't beat that.
That's pretty darn cool, you know. And on the flip side, and not to go too much into it because time, and also don't want to tell too many secrets, but any let's say more difficult interviews or nightmarish or anything like that?
Yeah, there's been some ones over the years that haven't been that good. I'll tell you where, and without naming names just yet, but when you're doing an interview and you're there to help promote their album or their tour or whatever they're selling, their knickknacks, it always amazes me that rock stars who are so particular about sound and audio when they make an album, the tone on my guitar, and then they do an interview and they, I've had one he was driving up to Big Bear and he had his windows open and he had a Bluetooth on, and I was like, dude, like what are you doing? Like give me the audio to work with. I can't work with nonsense,
Right.
So that's a bit of the nightmarish. The other ones are the yes no answer ones where you say, hey, talk to me about the new album, because you sort of have to ask about that because that's why you're on the phone. And they go, yeah, man, it's great. And you're like, okay, well, tell me why it's great. Oh, it's the best album we've ever made. And you're just like, it's like, listen, no fan's gonna want to listen to this if you're not gonna tell me a story. I mean, make something up, I don't care, but make it interesting. So that's when we're talking about nightmares. It's those yes no answers and the I don't give up about the audio, so I'm just going to be on my laptop microphone as I sit in the bathroom on the back of the bus while it's roaring down the street. And you're just like, oh my God, I can't use this. I can't use this, Mm-hmm. And I've had the other ones where they'll be like, oh, we're going to be driving through some tunnels later. And it's just like, well, then call me back after you're done with the tunnels. Like, there's no point in getting a conversation. And it happens. They're telling a story, and then the audio cuts out, and you're waiting and waiting, and then they get out of the tunnel, and the audio cuts back in. And you're like, yeah, how am I going to use a quarter of an answer? Like,
and then you got to do more editing,
Yeah, or just chop it right out. It's like leave, So that's the nightmare stuff. It's just. I think the respect sort of has to go both ways. If you want us to respect the process and do a nice story and post something great, well, be great back to us.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's reasonable, and it is a bit of a source of a frustration when it's just like, oh my God, here we go again.
Yep.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well, it has been a pleasure talking with you. You know, this is our first music podcast. I do other business related stuff, but you know, this is more just something that I wanted to enjoy and kind of, you know, learn from people in the industry. So Mitch, I want to thank you for our
You're
first
welcome.
being really good. So thank you very much for this.
You're absolutely welcome. And yeah, we'll definitely need to do a part 2 and actually include Mike.
Yeah.
I would,
Yeah, I'll be busting his chops on this. So
I know.
So for those of you that are listening to the tail ends of this, I got some resources. We'll always have like some sort of like a PowerPoint or something just to give you some extra material. So we put together a little PDF document for you. And so we got Mitch's official website and also all of his different podcasts and material, YouTube, Stitcher for the audio, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and maybe a few others. And we'll have that out there shortly after we post this to typically Facebook right now, and then we'll kind of expand out from there, old school style, you know?
Right. Sounds great. Well, there you go. It's been a pleasure.
Same here, man. So thanks. Have a great rest of the week. And you just gained another fan, one of many, many. But thank you for your time, and we'll look forward to talking with you again.
Absolutely. Merci. Cheers.
Mitch Lafon, thanks.